Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Restoring Human podcast. We believe humans were designed to flourish. Unfortunately, we live in a culture where many of our modern conveniences prevent us from thriving. But through intentional lifestyle decisions, we can return to an optimal state of health. I am Jarek Bakken.
I am Dr. Alex Arguello.
There was an L in there.
Darlix.
Today we are continuing our theme of resolutions, weight loss, getting healthy, all that jazz. And our topic is the role of exercise and the role of diet, how those two things kind of play together. They're kind of two separate beasts, but also very, very much tied together.
Yeah.
Speaking of exercise, I demolished Alex on the workout today.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened today. I must have, it was all mental, I guess.
Watched him do it at 6 a.m. Saw my opportunity to capitalize.
Did you do 7 rounds?
I did 9, dude.
What?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I was through year 5 at, people don't have context for this. I beat you by like 4 minutes there, so I was like, I gotta finish this thing.
You got 5 done in like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe I miscounted. Maybe I had 6 done.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. So, diet and exercise. I feel like it's interesting because in your context, I'm guessing you probably see more people who, like, you're dealing a lot more with the food stuff, correct?
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of, well, maybe it's just me. Like one of my big things was, since I didn't have a ton of information on how to eat well, and I did understand a little bit, tiny bit more about like working out and lifting weights and stuff, I definitely drifted towards that side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just, what's that saying? You can know just enough information to be dangerous or whatever. Is that what it is? Something like that.
You might be close.
Anyway, we are told that, if you want to lose weight, which everybody, first of all, I think we'll get into this at some point, but everybody equates losing weight with health. Like, in order to get healthy, you have to lose weight. That's what everybody thinks. So we've been told that if you want to lose weight and get healthy, that you have to move more and eat less. That's kind of what everybody thinks. So that's like the basic information that people know about health. So again, instead of actually diving in to figure out how you actually get healthy and how weight loss plays into that, and then what should I actually do to lose weight, it's just, I'll go to the gym and I'll start moving more. I'll figure out a way that it makes it enjoyable so that I can continue doing it. Or, again, they're just told, yes, I have to move, so then they do something that's not enjoyable, which is walking on a treadmill for an hour or elliptical for an hour. So then that's why gyms put TVs in there to try to make it enjoyable, because they know that it, of course, sucks to even do that for an hour. But I think a lot of people go towards the exercise thing is because, again, it's the most simple thing to do. Like, they can go to a gym, they can move their body, they can walk on a treadmill, they can jog, they can lift some weights. But actually making a correct choice when it comes to food is a lot more difficult. There's, of course, shopping that goes into that. There's planning that goes into that. And then there's the actual, do I even want to eat this food as opposed to this other food?
Yeah.
That goes into that. So they try to eat right is typically what I get from people. Try to eat right or eat better.
Yeah.
But they don't really know what that is, or even how that is going to lead them to the results that they want.
Yeah. Okay. So, we were like just before talking about how to kind of break things up into topics, I think we kind of just created another topic of what we would see as more optimal. I don't know. Anyway, uh, w- losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I guess it's almost like depending on how you're defining your goal, really like kind of determines how these two things of movement and diet play together. Because if your goal is losing weight, dropping like fat from your body, you could be pretty darn successful, like just understanding how to eat better.
Yeah.
If and I guess to a similar degree, if your goal is health, food is obviously going to be, I would argue, probably more important than your movement. But then movement can probably play a bigger part of that. But like as far as losing weight, you could accomplish a lot if you don't even touch on the movement stuff and you're just thinking about how you're eating.
Yeah. Especially if it's not a ton of weight that you need to lose. Again, I used to do these workshops where it would be like lose 20 pounds in 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
That primarily was going to happen because you needed to change your diet. Like you weren't going to go and exercise a ton and lose 20 pounds in 30 days. You had to do both of those things, but primarily, again, you had to do the nutrition part. But for long term, especially if health is your goal, then yes, we need to figure out the food. We need to get that right. But if you don't exercise, then it's absolutely impossible. Specifically for health, of course, you could lose weight. You could never exercise and lose weight.
Right.
That's what happened to people that starve themselves. Of course, you
Sure.
look at Holocaust victims.
Sure.
They don't have anything on their body. Why? Because they weren't given any food. So if you completely cut food out of your diet, you're going to lose weight without moving ever. But again, that's when we get back to is why do we want to lose weight? Do you want to do it because you just want to lose weight to look better, or do you actually want to be healthy? Those are two different conversations.
Yeah. So something that we have touched a little bit on before is like kind of pushing against this like calories in, calories out type of thing. And while like yes, we should have a good understanding of what is in food and like caloric content of things and macronutrients and whatever, it's not necessarily just like, okay, I need to, like you're saying, go run for the amount of time that's going to take me to be in a caloric deficit and then eat whatever foods I can to create that deficit imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
What like I guess what big picture are the problems when that's kind of the focus?
When you are just kind of believing that move more and eat less type thing, if that's all based on calories. Yeah. So kind of the what research over history since they've started kind of looking at this thing has shown is the calories in, calories out model, I guess, works for a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, if you are actually working out enough where you're burning a ton of calories and you're not giving your body as much calories, then just how the physiology works is you're most likely going to lose weight. Part of that's going to be water weight. You probably will burn some fat off your body. You might actually be burning muscle tissue off of your body. It's just you're going to be pulling things from your body, so that works short term. But every research study that's ever been done on the calories and calories out has shown that it never works long term. It always fails. And what I mean by fails is you can't sustain it, and you always gain the weight back, and most of the time you gain even more weight back. And that's because your body actually needs a certain number of calories in order
Right.
for functions to happen.
Right.
Most of the calorie burning that happens in our body is not from our movement. It's from our brain requiring energy. It's from our heart, our liver, our kidneys, all these other organs that require energy. So that's what calories are. It's just a measure of energy. That's the thing that uses up the most amount of calories. So kind of at a simple level, what happens if you just go and try to exercise yourself to death and burn all these calories? Well, it's not necessarily just going to keep taking weight off you. What it's going to do is it's going to lower the energy that goes to those other organs. So now, yes, maybe you have lost some weight, but you've also made yourself a more unhealthy person because now your brain isn't getting the energy it needs. Your liver isn't getting the energy it needs. Your digestive system's not getting the energy it needs. So you're just putting yourself in a very poor physiological state.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens on the other end of that is, so your body lowers its energy output, and then you can't sustain keeping that small amount of calories, so you start to just increase your calories a little bit. Well, now you're in that kind of no longer in the caloric deficit anymore, so then your body starts to store the energy that you're giving it because it's more so than what your body's used to utilizing. So then you start to gain the weight back.
Yeah. So when I had my Apple Watch, was one of the first times that I kind of had like a, oh yeah, that's how that works type of thing going on, and realizing that it's like, okay, when I'm working out, I'm like doing this thing that's above neutral. It's not like if I were to be sitting still all day, I'm burning 0 calories. Like, and then I do this exercise. Okay, I burned 300 calories today. It's like, no, you've burned a couple thousand calories today. Like, doing something above like baseline. That's like the difference that is happening. You know.
Yep.
That was a interesting thing. So.
Which again, because people don't know about that fact that I just talked about with the kind of the energy that goes to these other organs, these vital functions that lowers, because your body has to, because you're just not giving it enough energy. And the other part of it that we'll get into, it doesn't also have access to some of the energy that is stored on your body already. Then you just can't sustain that. So it's just going to eventually move to. So that's why just continue to exercise yourself to death if you want to lose weight never works, and you're miserable, obviously. So there's a whole mental thing that plays into it too, because I just keep going and I keep going to the gym and spending an hour there on this treadmill that's so boring, and the gym smells, and I hate everything about it, and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see.
Yeah.
So then, the whole mental thing that comes into it makes you give up. So yeah, exercise is not the key for sure to losing weight.
Yeah, and so CrossFit, for example, I feel like, has done a great job of finding all the fit people, and like people who are able to do, these cool things with their body, lift lots of weights, do all this stuff. But like that alone, when like that's something that, somebody sees, rather than, now that like that's kind of an established thing, the person who may not be in that sort of state, they might be a little overweight, they find that instead of, Planet Fitness, whatever, an elliptical, even though we might think that this style of exercise is superior, just like that person finding that exercise is not enough to make dramatic change, in body composition and that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's like there's so much of a focus on the exercise, but when looking at becoming healthy and losing weight being a part of that, the exercise alone just like it doesn't cut it.
Right. And I mean, most people know of CrossFit as being a way of doing exercise, but the whole methodology behind CrossFit fits nutrition in there.
Right.
I mean, it's part of
Right.
its whole kind of pyramid of,
Absolutely. It's yeah.
of being fit, I guess.
Should have had my T-shirt on.
Yeah. Because again, CrossFit is, I would say, as opposed to something like going and, just having a bunch of ellipticals in your gym or even free weights and stuff where people can come and bodybuild. Like CrossFit is set up because fitness is an indicator of health, right? They're not just doing it because they think exercise. CrossFit wasn't made to help people lose weight, right? It was helped to get people fit, and it was helped to get people healthy. I mean, they're kind of on this big kick right now to try to get rid of big beverage and big food and stuff.
Huge.
Going after them. Why? Because they know that that's not necessarily going to, maybe partially going to hurt the CrossFit brand. So of course they're trying to grow their brand, but they know that that's destroying people's health. And if their mission is to try to get people healthier, yes, they can positively stimulate them to this action, but they also know they have to get rid of this negative stuff too, if their goal is ever going to be accomplished.
Yeah.
So yeah, they understand it too. They understand the whole how it's about health, not weight loss. They understand how it's about food has to be a huge part of being healthy, but also just even being fit is important too.
Yeah. So let's go deeper into the details there. So we know that food and diet is like on the scale, it's more important. Like, so when we're talking about fitness, it's pretty important. Obviously, the exercise is a huge piece of that. We're talking about health and weight loss, like this scales over here with the diet. Mm-hmm. So you foreshadowed a little bit about this whole energy system thing. So looking at CrossFit, for example, I love their like one line, nutrition like prescription. Meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. That's like the one line, that's the CrossFit diet. Then a little further, they're big into what's known as the zone proportion of macronutrients and having 30% of your calories coming from protein, 30% of your calories coming from fat, and 40% coming from carbohydrates. So that's where I'm interested to see kind of how you feel about overall macronutrient breakdown compared to that pie, I guess, if you will. I don't know what you would call that, but anyway. Yeah, so what is like big picture, what is optimal?
Well, at a minimum, I would reverse the fat and carbohydrates.
Okay.
For sure. A higher percentage of, again, if we're talking about health, but even if we're talking specifically about weight loss, you need more fat in your diet than carbohydrates, generally, right? I think there's probably some people genetically that just do better with carbohydrates and less fat just for overall health. And I would think that would also lead to weight loss for them. But you for sure need the percentage higher of fat compared to carbohydrates. Now, I'm probably okay with 30% protein, but if, again, in order to get the fat higher, I would for sure decrease the carbohydrates, but then even be okay with decreasing protein a little bit. The problem with that is because then we don't get people so focused on what their what macronutrient is in this food. Fat and proteins typically go together. It's very tough to eat something that's just fat.
Right.
So if you're eating animal products, dairy products, meat, those type of things, they're going to have fat and protein in them. So as long as you're eating clean foods, you're most likely going to get the right amount of both of those nutrients. But again, if it's specific to weight loss, it's increasing it's increasing the fat. So that's when you probably do want to start adding foods that are just fat, lowering the amount of carbohydrate foods. And the reason that that's the case, so what I referenced earlier is the body gets energy from the food that we eat, and if we don't use that energy, then it stores it on our body. So that's what fat is. That's why people get overweight, is because they've taken in too much energy and their body stores it. And then, we see that as being unhealthy, and maybe seeing somebody who is skinny as healthy. That's not necessarily the case. What that really means is that the person that's overweight's physiology is actually working. It's smart for the body to say, I'm going to store this. I'm going to keep this, because how it used to be is they didn't really know when they were going to get food. So they needed to stay alive they needed their bodies to store the food. So if somebody's not storing food and they're staying skinny regardless of what they're eating, all that means is that it's not genetically something's happened where they don't put on fat in places that you can see it. Most likely that means that you're putting on fat in places you don't want it. You don't want it around your organs specifically. So if somebody stays skinny, that most likely just means that they're putting fat around their liver, they're putting fat around their heart, they're putting fat around other vital organs that they don't want to see happen. But back to the whole storing thing. So our bodies can get energy from the food we eat, or the energy that we've already stored. So that's what we want when we're actually losing weight, is we want to access that energy storage. But we can't get that by just exercising. We can't even get that by just eating less. We get that by not stimulating certain hormones that allow our bodies to actually get access to those, to that energy, and specifically the hormone insulin, which most people know that as, related to diabetes. That if you are type 1 diabetic, your body can't produce insulin, so you're insulin dependent. So you, of course, need insulin shots to be able to bring your blood sugar down. Because insulin's job is it's an energy storage hormone. It takes energy we put in our body and stores it in our body in case we need it later. If you can't get your insulin levels under control, then there's no way that you can burn fat off of your body. Doesn't matter how much you exercise, doesn't matter how small your meals are. If they're meals that are stimulating insulin's going to be spiked, and you can't lose weight because you can't access the stuff you need to access to actually burn the fat off of your body. That's why I say lower the carbohydrates. It's because carbohydrates specifically stimulate insulin. Fat has very little effect, if any effect, on insulin. So again, if it's weight loss, increasing the level of fat that's in your diet, decreasing the level of carbohydrates in your diet is always going to be the best way to go.
Yeah. So I think a big picture thing there is most of us are super dependent on carbohydrates for that energy, and so whatever we can do to make that shift in the direction of, you said maybe once you've gone full ketogenic, all energy coming from fat. I don't think you would recommend that as, a full-time lifestyle.
No.
But the more that we can be working in that direction, using that system of energy that our body has, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, the ketogenic thing is, of course, I don't want to call it a fad, because it is, there's definitely good things about it, but we're kind of the direction everybody's going thing. It's kind of the end all be all, the best way to eat. I see it as more therapeutic.
Right.
For people that are really sick, specifically with brain stuff, the ketogenic diet can be helpful. They're starting to see it as how it's helpful for cancer for specific reasons that I'm sure we'll talk about eventually in another show. But for weight loss, again, the reason the ketogenic diet is helpful is because, from my understanding of it, is if in order to get to ketosis, your insulin levels have to be low. So then now I can access the fat. The other part of it is if you've gotten to ketosis, then your body knows how to burn fat, because ketones are just basically when you break down a fatty acid in your body, it turns into a ketone, and you can use those for energy as opposed to using glucose or sugar for energy. So if you've got to a place where you're in ketosis, then we know your body knows how to burn fat. And the closer you stay there, even if you're not into actual ketosis, the closer you stay there, the further you are away from always needing sugar for energy, always needing carbohydrates for energy. So again, therapeutic for sure if people are really sick, and even if somebody needs to lose a lot of weight, using it for a while, but kind of staying close to it, I would say, is always a good idea, which is what kind of, the diet that we kind of talk about, just a human diet is somewhat ketotic anyway. You're going to stay being a fat burner as opposed to a carb burner, a sugar burner for sure.
Yeah. So I think even higher level, like when looking at diet and exercise, how they play together with weight loss, I think the step one that we've kind of talked about before is start eating real food.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this calorie balance stuff. I think it would be near impossible to be in so much of a caloric surplus to produce obesity if you're only eating real food. Have no knowledge of, macronutrients, what you're doing there. If you're eating real food, I don't think you can quite consume, to that outcome.
Right.
Then kind of what we're talking about right now is more like refining that and how to be a little more educated with that approach, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, for people who have never done that, like they've never eaten real food, and now they're in a state where their body the caloric surplus is already on their body, so they're gonna have to do things, a lot differently than just eating real food. And of course, that's the most important, but they're also gonna have to do some other things to make sure that they can get back to the correct body weight, I guess is what you'd want to say.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to just having all the storage that we're never going to use because we're never at a time where we're in famine. We don't have food to access. So if the end of the world ever comes and there's no food left, like those are going to be the people you want to be anyway, right? So I guess that's that way of thinking about it.
Oh, boy. Cool. I think you got anything else to add there?
Well, I mean, we've kind of picked on exercise a little bit. There's still some, of course, overall health. We'll get to why it's important, but even specifically for weight loss, it's not the exercise it burns calories that's helpful for weight loss. What's helpful for weight loss is getting back to that insulin thing. So when we eat foods, we produce insulin. But if you're like one of us who has a level of fitness where metabolically, so how our body uses energy, is flexible. Basically, we can use carbs for energy if we need them. We can use fat for energy when we need it. If that's where you want to be at, and if you need to lose weight, you want to just make your body more and more metabolically flexible. You want to be able to get rid of what's called insulin resistance. So when that insulin is produced, can it actually put sugar into your muscles and your liver cells to actually be used for energy as opposed to storing it as fat? Exercise makes you more insulin sensitive, makes you more metabolically flexible. So it's absolutely necessary even if you want to lose weight, but don't have the mindset of I just need to go burn all kind of crazy calories and that's what's going to allow me to lose weight. Exercising the right way, functional movements, what are all the rest of them?
High intensity functional movement.
Constantly varied.
Yeah.
That type of exercise is what's going to make you the most metabolically flexible, which is going to long term allow your body to get to the right weight.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. I just decided. Next episode, we are going to
be wearing the same shirts.
Shh. Get into a little more nitty gritty with like food, what the heck macronutrients even are, and like foods that are those things. Tracking food. I'll save that. I'll ask that question shortly. And yeah, some more like practical bits with all that stuff because I think we kind of came at that with a little bit of like a foreknowledge. And I think digging in there would be helpful. So
cool.
That's where we're headed next week. Get after it. If you know what you're doing. Otherwise, listen, and then you can get after it afterwards. Yeah. Okay, thanks, guys.